Hey, what's up guys? My name's Jared. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Honda, the Land Cruiser, and a little bit about the Nissan. If you saw my recent video on the Honda, you would have seen that the engine was in it and it was running. So you might be a little bit surprised to see this. The engine is back out of it. I've got the engine over here, and not only is the engine out, but the head is off the engine. So what happened? Well, the video that I posted was the actual first time the car had ever started. That was the footage of me getting it to run for the first time, and it ran really pretty good. It idled good, it ran good. I thought, great, perfect. That was a success. I was going to move on to the clutch hydraulics and try to get the brakes going and maybe do a test drive by now. But what happened is later that day, it started running a little bit worse and worse. Each time I would start it, and I kept trying to adjust the carbs, and I couldn't fix it, and I assumed, well, you know, it's the fuel pump. This fuel pump is pretty old school design. Every time it gets an electric signal, it just toggles one time, and then the points that were over here on the engine, they trigger it. Anyway, it's not a great system, so I assumed, okay, the pump is only working intermittently. That must be why it's running rough. It's starving it for fuel. No big deal. I tried to rebuild the pump, did a bunch of tests on it, all kinds of stuff, thought, nah, that'll fix it. It didn't fix it. And then I assumed, well, I probably got a little bit of junk in the carburetors. Even though I cleaned the tank and the fuel lines, maybe they just got gummed up again, and so that's going to be the problem. You know, I never thought it was going to be that big of a deal. But then I spent days and days and days working on it and trying to figure it out. And ultimately, I had to order another compression tester because I didn't have one that was small enough to fit the spark plug holes on this engine. But once I got that compression tester, I did a compression test, and they came back. The first test, it was about 110 psi per cylinder. One cylinder was like 125, the rest of them were 110. So not great, but pretty consistent and not terrible. But then, like an hour later, I do another compression test. It's only barely run a few times in that time period, and now they're all at 60 psi. And then I tested again a few minutes later. One of the cylinders is back up to 110, the rest are at 60. Then later, a different cylinder is back up at 110 and the rest are at 60. So the compression was jumping all over the place. Basically, my guess is that the valves were not seating correctly, at least not every time. Now I did just lap those valves myself, and there was some pitting and stuff in there that I wasn't able to get out. So obviously I didn't do the best job. I didn't do a complete head rebuild or valve job or anything. I'm pretty sure that's the issue. So now I've pulled the head back off. I've taken it just today. I dropped it off at a machine shop, and I'm having the head rebuilt. Hopefully it's going to be done pretty quickly. I've been talking to a really nice guy, Chris over on the East Coast, who has been helping me diagnose this, and he was also helping me out with some new head gaskets so I can put this thing back together once the head is rebuilt, because I still haven't been able to get those parts from Germany. There's still apparently no international shipping. Yeah, the engine is back out and taken apart once again. Like I said, hopefully the head is going to be back, maybe even by early next week. And I may have the head gasket by sometime next week. So maybe by my next update video, this thing will be running again. And this will have been a relatively small hiccup in the scope of the project. But it was pretty painful having to pull that thing out again so early. But anyways, that's the Honda. You may also notice that I've got the Land Cruiser body in here. So one thing that I've been working on, you saw me, I did a video where I welded in this piece on the other side. This side was much worse. You can see there's about a ½ inch of Bondo in here. And obviously this has all been beat up. I ordered a new set of body hammers. I had a couple, but I didn't have any of the metal, I don't know what you call it, but the block of metal you put back here to hit it with the hammer. I also got a new shrinking disc. So you use the disc to heat up these parts of the metal, and then you can hopefully hammer them flat. So I'm going to attempt to try to reshape this as best I can by beating it back into shape. I'm not confident that's going to work, but I'm going to give it a try because I think it'll be interesting. And then, of course, if that doesn't work, then I'll just cut this section out and I'll replace it. But that's the next step on the body. I'm not positive that'll be the next Land Cruiser video, though, because the engine that has been being rebuilt over the last week or two, a couple weeks, is supposed to be done soon. Maybe I may have that back by early next week as well. So the engine, they've bored out the cylinders. The number 6 cylinder, the worst cylinder, they couldn't bore it out far enough to get rid of all of the pitting. So they've had to re-sleeve cylinder number 6 and then bore that out. So it's going to be bored out 20 over. I got new pistons, new rings, the head's being rebuilt, new exhaust valves are being put in, the flywheel and clutch plate are both being resurfaced. So all of that is being done, and I should hopefully have it back soon. I think hopefully by next week sometime. So one of the two will be the next video. It'll either be me working on this body some more, or it will be me putting the engine back onto the frame and then starting that up. And that, I'm expecting good things from that. I mean, it ran good before, actually. Even the way that it ran pretty good. And so I'm betting it's gonna just fire up and run really good now. I've still got the fuel injection system for that, and that's just kind of bulletproof. It runs great. So that's the Land Cruiser, that's the Honda. Real quick on the Nissan. So basically the next step on the Nissan, aside from some clutch hydraulics and stuff, is to get the engine in it. I bought this. I was told this is a low mileage rebuild engine. That's what I was told. It does appear to be rebuilt, and maybe it's low mileage. It was also stored for a very long time after it was rebuilt, and it was not protected very well. So I have cleaned, all this stuff out. I've degreased it and blown it out with brake cleaner and got it kind of cleaned up, but there was no kind of protective cover or anything over this thing, obviously, for a long time. And there are a few things that have started to raise questions, like the fact that this bolt was only finger tight, and the fact that the oil pan is only held on by like 4 bolts instead of like the dozen or so that it should have. So I got it up on this engine stand, which isn't going to work at all. It almost tipped over and fell over because it's just not a good enough engine stand. But I got it up on there, and I was able to flip it over and pull the oil pan off of it. Well, first of all, I cranked it over, and there was a little bit of resistance. You could feel the pistons kind of had some resistance in the cylinders. So I turned it over, pulled the oil pan off, and I could see the bottom of the cylinders, and there is a little bit of corrosion in there. The pistons are aftermarket, so they're new. It looks brand new under the valve cover, so I think the important things are actually in good shape, and I think it has been rebuilt, and hopefully it's going to be pretty much ready to go. But I don't want to start it up with that little bit of corrosion in the cylinders and risk breaking rings or causing any more damage. So I am going to have to pull it apart to a certain extent. I'm either going to modify this engine stand, put another bracket across here so that it can hold the engine without falling over, or get another engine stand. I'm not sure, but then I need to pull the pistons out, pull the head off, pull the pistons out, and then I'll just hone out the cylinders a little bit and put it back together. And then I have everything else new for it: a new water pump, alternator, starter, plugs, wires. I've got all that stuff for it. So I kind of thought it was going to be as easy as just kind of bolting everything on it and putting it in the truck and starting it up. But it's not going to be quite that easy. I'm going to have to do some disassembly on here, but that'll give me a chance to check everything out, make sure the timing chain is good and all that kind of stuff. But so that'll be the next step on the Nissan, and I believe that'll happen soon. In fact, I may do a video really soon because I need to rebuild the carb for this thing before I install it. This is the original intake and carburetor, and I just recently bought an ultrasonic cleaner, because when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with the Honda, I kept thinking it was the carburetors, and so I bought this cleaner and I rebuilt those carburetors again. But I'm going to use that to rebuild this one as well, so I'm kind of excited about that. So I may very soon just do a video where I'm rebuilding the carb, and then maybe the video after that will be me actually tearing this engine down as far as I need to, and then cleaning up the cylinders and putting it all back together and getting it back into the truck, because I do still want to get this thing running as quickly as possible so I can start moving it around, and then from there I'll do the interior and stuff. But so that's the Nissan, that's the Honda, that's the Land Cruiser. That's pretty much it for this week. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.